Also, people want to know how you feel about Russiagate.
That's something that I've been following since the Orange Revolution in Kiev. That's where we originally found out about Paul Manafort's $12 million. Again, coming from the finance community, I know how the Trump family was cut off from U.S. capital in the late 90s, early 2000s after all their bankruptcies. When they needed money, they went elsewhere, right? So I think there's a lot of meat on those bones. I don't think any of us are served by screaming about it right now. I hardly ever post about it. Let's let Bob Mueller finish the investigation and see what comes out of it. My biggest fear is if we don't end up with a smoking gun on collusion, the public is going to get lost in a couple decades long money laundering, web. But I think that this will shine a light on both oligarchies in a way that needs to happen.
I'm with you on that last part. I mean, but this is one of those things where they're just pointing fingers at a scapegoat. And I despise Trump as much as the next person. I think Trump is terrible. But I think all we're going to find here is money laundering or something similar, something that a shady oligarch like Trump does, something like a shady oligarch like the Clintons do, something like shady oligarchs do in Russia, in England, in Italy, wherever. I think oligarchs, they know no country, they know no allegiance. It's just shady business dealings as usual. And I think the distractathon this has become, and the reason I'm way more cynical about Russiagate is because I've really experienced the cyclical effect of it. I've experienced the effect of independent media being attacked, of people being smeared on a daily basis, of the intelligence agencies overseeing social media more than they ever have before. This is all connected to the hysteria that is Russiagate. And who's actually benefiting from Russiagate? The 1%. Big corporate media, because their ratings are being experienced, because there's people that are privileged enough that this is the only issue that they think is important right now. And I just see it as a scapegoat because people are really awake to what the system's really doing right now. And as you even hinted yourself, we gain nothing by talking about it constantly right now. We gain absolutely nothing. I used to be, let them finish the investigation. I'm to the point now, it's been almost 2 years. They got pretty much nothing. I mean, I don't know. The Rainbow Bernie ab meme didn't sway me. Maybe it swayed you. It didn't sway me at all. How much time do they need? And this is such a gross waste of resources and money and time where we could be talking about way more important things. I'm completely over it. At this point, I don't think we're ever going to find anything out. And I think with this ridiculous DNC lawsuit, which proves how tragically out of touch the Democrats really are. I mean, when you think they can't possibly get more out of touch, they say, hold my beer. I think they're just going to try to prolong this indefinitely, and I think we're going to get lukewarm results in 2018 and possibly 2020, depending on how much they steal because of it.
I agree with you on that last note completely. And again, the reason that we're running an independent campaign is so that we don't have to engage in partisan politics on either side, and we can focus on discussing issues, because all anybody's doing around Russia is making it a partisan pissing contest, which is the root of the problem and the problem all interwoven. I'm curious why you've lost faith in the investigation entirely, because look, even if it is everything that you're saying, let's drag that into the light, right? If you and I are hip to the oligarchy and the general public isn't, then let's drag into the light exactly the way these backroom deals go down, exactly the way these guys meet off the Seychelles to do big business deals at everyone else's expense, right? Like, I don't understand how we really have a revolution in this country and bring democracy back to the people unless we drag this stuff into the light and find out what happens. There were 9 investigations in Benghazi. So, I mean, talking about wasteful resources, like, I mean, this one to me, like I said, has way more meat on the bones. You're already seeing indictments and charges against people that, if they were as connected as everybody says they are into the deep state, wouldn't be getting in trouble, right? If the deep state existed, Trump wouldn't have gotten elected. The Trump team became the very deep state they were warning about. Not that there aren't already concerted influences and everything else, but when you say they, a lot of times my first response is, who is they? Because if you really start to narrow down who they is in these macro conversations becomes a very, very complex web of people. And I have zero faith in humans' ability to keep a secret. So when it comes to conspiracies, I'm very often skeptical throughout, because it involves a lot of people keeping a lot of secrets, which nobody's very good at. The Mueller team is tight-lipped. They've done RICO cases on organized crime families before. It does take a year or two to comb through everybody's books. These guys have been running this crap through shell companies for decades. It takes a long time. But his team is tight-lipped. Everything we know about the investigation is only coming from people on Trump's side that get interviewed after the fact and tell them, reporters, what Mueller asked. So we don't know what he's got yet.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head on why I'm cynical about it, because I mean, first of all, at this point, and I know people say it takes time, they compare it to Watergate. It's been a while, and they've thrown a lot of just borderline nothing burgers at us. And why I'm so cynical, and you said you're skeptical of people's ability to keep a secret. So am I. Donald Trump is about as subtle as a horse taking a shit in the middle of Manhattan. And you want to tell me that he's somehow staying ahead of all these intelligence agencies?
No, he didn't.
I find it hard to believe. I mean, I find it very, 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 very hard to believe. And if they find something tomorrow, I mean, I'll change. I'll be like, all right, they found something. But until then, I don't want to hear about it on the media 95% of the time. I think they're using it as a scapegoat. They're using it as a distractathon. This lawsuit is a bogus waste of resources. And those are the cyclical effects of all this. So I'm tired of giving it lip service and giving it some kind of credibility when it's really not deserving of any at this point. And the cyclical effects, the damages aren't even worth it. People are just, even if they expose some kind of oligarchy, people are still going to spin this. And when I say people, I mean the corporate media. They're still going to spin this to make it something unique to Trump. People like you and I know it's not something unique to Trump, but they're going to spin it that way. And that's going to be the end of it. So, I mean, I don't share your optimism that this will lead to some kind of real positive thing.
He's the poster child. So he's the poster child of everything we've been frustrated with for the last 30 and 40 years. So I have hope that we are in a pendulum situation where we have swung so far into crazy land with what they've been doing that once everybody sees it, we'll get to come back to normalcy, where we will stop this infanticide fascination with rich men thinking that they know everything. I mean, Donald Trump controlled the narrative that he started his whole empire on $1 million loan. No, he inherited a $40 million REIT of Manhattan property in the 70s from Frank. Then he inherited another $20 million when Frank died, at least. Like, he had everything handed to him at the right point and the right time to make a lot of money a lot of different ways, and lost a lot of money a lot of different ways. But he still went through the primary process and into the election with this reputation as a good businessman. That's a failure of everybody running against him. But the idea that the media has a cohorted, concerted effort to control a narrative, again, that's where we differentiate a little bit, because I just come back to the profit. It's a lot more simple. It's not that CNN is coordinating with MSNBC and Fox and everybody else to do anything that keeps us all mystified as sheep. It's just that they think this is what sells, and this is what they get the most clicks on. So this is what they keep force feeding us. It's just a vicious cycle of clickbait.
They also have an incentive to uphold the status quo. I'm not implying that they all meet together and they bring up these journalistic conspiracies. Right. What I am implying, and what is just factually true, again, they're motivated by profit, as you said, and they're also motivated by a status quo that is helping their business model. That status quo narrative right now is that, hey, everything was fine until Trump got here. So they're going to try to make it out like Trump is some outlier. Meanwhile, he's just an oligarch as usual. He's despicable. Yeah, he's absolutely despicable. You know who else was despicable? The Bush administration. I mean, this is a status quo that is broken beyond repair. Donald Trump is the ugly face. Donald Trump is a Republican minus subtlety. That's all Donald Trump is. He is a Republican minus subtlety. People are talking about how brutal his policies are, and they're right. Those are just Republican policies. And if you disagree, I would like to ask you, what is one policy Donald Trump has that no other Republican would do, that any other Republican wouldn't also do?
No, I agree with you. I just, again, I think we give him too much credit. So in two ways, like you mentioned earlier, how that you don't believe that this Russia stuff matters because there's no way that he stayed ahead of our intelligence agency. And I completely agree with you. He didn't stay ahead of anyone. All the breadcrumbs are laughably obvious. I mean, he was on television stating obstruction of justice, right? Now, back to your point, yeah, he's an exposed nerve in the Republican vein because he's just a con man and a showman. He will tell you, and he has, that the only reason he has the policies he has is because those got the biggest applause breaks at the rallies. He doesn't actually have an ethos. He doesn't care. He only does what he thinks gets him attention. So we give him credit for being this like 3D chess playing master of trickery and disguise and distraction. He's a bumbling idiot. It's the emperor with no clothes.
Yeah, I agree with all that. But all right, let's move on because yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said about assessing Trump. It's kind of bigger picture where they're trying to steer this thing. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.